Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and today on the podcast, it is my deep belief that 2022 is going to be a defining game changer for many people in the coffee industry around the globe. It is going to be the year where many people make a decision that is going to change the trajectory of their career or their business in the coffee industry, and that's for a lot of factors. So that's what we're going to talk about today on the podcast. Before we get started, if you are looking for a consultant in the coffee industry in 2022, get in contact with us and we will put you in contact with the variety of consultants that we have available, either myself or a number of other people. That's in a couple of different languages. So if we can help, check the show notes and get in contact with us. So 2022 will be a defining year in the coffee industry. The reason I say this is because I believe that 2020 and 2021 have really shaken the roots of what our industry stands for and what our industry is built on. In my humble opinion, I feel that the coffee industry is the industry that people go to when they would like to do something in business that they think would be a lot easier than, let's say, becoming the owner of a law firm or the owner of a veterinary practice. It's the barrier to entry into our industry is much lower to own a business than many other industries. And the challenges of surviving given the stresses of 2020 and 2021 are now starting to push heavily on business owners. For the first time, they're really having to take a look at the fact that they may perhaps not be as financially literate as they should be, or they are not as literate in the supply chain as they should be, especially at times of shortages in the supply chain. Perhaps they lent heavily on the relationships that they had with brokers and importers, not realizing that this is the time to have had relationships with producers. As we all rush to get coffee as we need it, those who really focused on the quality of their buying philosophy are the real winners right now in that aspect of business. If we look at other things that business owners are being stressed about in ways that they never have really before, because before they could get away with it, was their hiring practices. So business owners who previously just looked for a barista or even tried to find a good barista or a good roaster, but didn't quite go to the effort of defining their own values as a business, their own vision and mission and life currencies as a business. The business owners who are going to survive 2022 are the business owners that are literate in these kinds of things about their own business, because the labor force that's remaining is seeking this kind of thing. And so what I think we're going to start to see in 2022 is a labor force and a customer base or a consumer base that's become much more conscious of the way that it engages in its buying practices and in its labor activities. Now, business owners who buck having to, or they resist having to adapt to those changes, it is my deep belief that they are going to find 2022 very challenging. And what a lot of my friends in coffee and I have been talking about is that we thought 2020 and 2021 were going to be the years where there was a kind of reckoning that happened. There's not a good word for it, but that's the kind of thing that we thought would happen. You'd see a lot of businesses that really shouldn't have been open because they were barely surviving. We thought that we would see them close in 2020 and 2021. And that's not to say that we didn't. We didn't see the number of businesses that I thought would close by then close. But what you do see when you have conversations with them is you hear them say, I don't think I'm going to survive 2022. The reason when you challenge them on how they survived 2020 and 2021, it was from government funding. And so the government funding happened to get them through 2020 and 2021. Now, with the economic challenges that are coming in 2022, that's going to take a lot of that government funding away. And governments have kicked the can down the road, printing all this money, and the decisions or the consequences of those decisions will now come due in 2022, and we will start to see collapses happening everywhere. And business owners who would have otherwise chosen to close or been forced to close in 2020 or 2021 will absolutely have to close in 2022, barring a miracle of some sort. So what I think we will start to see is the economic stresses that people were previously cushioned from will disappear, and the idea of having to now make it independent of that kind of cushioning is going to show the reality of what 2020 and 2021 did to our industry. I think we're finally going to see the real picture as it is. We're definitely seeing that in the labour market. We're definitely seeing that even though government funding has been, the majority has been taken away from our workforce, they're not returning. They don't want to come back to work in the coffee industry. And all over the world, you can see people saying, I need more people. I need more staff. And the lack of availability of staff as that continues is going to drive them deeper and deeper into a situation where, because of the reduced revenue, even though they have much more business than they can deal with, if they don't have staff, they can't service that business. And because of that, their revenue is going to drop, but their operating expenses are not. And so the longer they go without having the ability to operate at full capacity, the closer they will get to closing. Additional to all of this, I'm from the producers that I've spoken to and the importers that I've spoken to, as well as the commodity traders that I've spoken to, our supply chain woes are not even close to being done. Not even close. And so there are many factors that are coming into defining that 2022 is going to be a game changer for our entire industry. No matter where you sit, you're probably exhausted right now. Whether you've been successful these past few years or whether it's been utterly soul-destroying and really hard to stay doing what you're doing, the exhaustion is real. And what I think this will lead to is that the additional piling on of all the stresses that are taking place in our industry, I think that that's going to cause people to make decisions that they had been previously buffered from having to make. And I think it's awesome for people to be liberated from those stresses. So I don't see that the kind of reorganization of our industry in 2022 is a bad thing. I think that if people can accept the direction that they need to take and look for the joy and the opportunities presented to them in those moments, I think that many people, if they can go with the flow of what's happening and be proactive in defining the outcome of that, I think people can really be better off than what they anticipate they can be. I can tell you that the people who have been in our mastermind groups the past 2 years and our one-on-one clients and people who listen to this podcast, it is just so wonderful to see how people have really embraced the change that was necessary to get them into a better mindset and a better position financially, professionally, from a business perspective, so that they are empowered with information that allows them to be independent thinkers and make decisions that they know work for them and for the ecosystem that they operate in as a business or as an employee. And that makes me incredibly proud. So if you find the information on this podcast really helpful, I would like to ask you a favor. I would like to ask you to share it with other people in the industry. And I ask you this in the hopes that we can encourage more and more people in the industry to start looking at the way that they participate from a more of a critical thinking perspective. The more people we can have out there that think independently and they let go of doing things the traditional way in coffee, the better chance that we're going to have at having an industry that moves in a direction that operates with greater integrity and intelligence. And I think that's going to be awesome in the long run. But we've got some challenging times in the short term. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Please don't forget to subscribe and click the notifications bell. Have an amazing rest of your day.